Hello and welcome to the video for Tuesday, week 18, mobile app design. So today we're going to talk a little bit about icons. The icon that would be on the iPhone or the Android phone that would be tapped on to launch the program, the app. Now I have some links for you here. This first one, Apple Icon Resolution Guidelines, will take you to this page where they will explain the resolution guidelines. Now, in the mobile apps that we've been making, we've been taking our graphics and putting them into HD and exporting them. And XD has been doing this thing where it's been making, we export we put our graphic in XD at what we call 100% or 1x size. And then HD has been outputting both the 1x and the 3x version. So this is just that size times 2 and that size times 3. And the reason it's been doing that is because depending on the device, some devices have twice the resolution as earlier devices and some have 3. It shows you which devices will use which icon. Like for example, the icon XS is using the 3x, or the one that's 3 times as big as the original, whereas the 11-inch iPad Pro uses the 2x, right? So what that means is, just like all the other images that you're putting in your app, when you make the app icon, you have to have a 1x, a 2x, and a 3x version of it. Okay, so this article here, explains a little bit about designing the high-resolution artwork. They tell you to use a grid to make it in ping format, use an 8-bit color palette. If it doesn't require 24-bit, because it will make a smaller file. You could also use JPEGs if you wanted to, and so on and so forth. So this is all the information about the resolution. Now another link here is called App Icon, and this one takes you to the Apple website, what are called the Human Interface Guidelines. And this is where they give you some general information about how to design your app. Embrace simplicity, provide a single focus point, design a recognizable icon, and so on and so forth. Don't use pictures back here in the background because they're too large and nobody will be able to see them anyway. They generally don't recommend including text on there. You could include a letter or something, like a giant A or something, but nothing too detailed because it will get lost because these are so small. And then here they give you that same information about, it should be in the RGB color space, a ping value. It says flatten with no transparency, and so on and so forth, right? And then down here, once again, they go into the app icon sizes. And one of the things I want you to notice is like the 3x size is 180 pixels by 180 pixels, which means the 1x size is 60 by 60, right? Okay, so next we have this link called Icon Grid Template, and that I believe is this one. And this is a template grid that some designer made that you can download, and I downloaded it myself. Let's see if we click on this. Let me click here, Icon Grid for your design project. Yeah, and so what I did was I just downloaded this ping file here because this is a file for the program Sketch. But I downloaded this ping file and I just placed it in Illustrator, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like. But it's generally this design placed into Illustrator. Now the reason I place it in Illustrator is because if you design your icons in Illustrator, they can be really clean vector lines. And of course, the ultimate format that it needs to be in is a PNG or a JPEG, but you can always export PNGs and JPEGs from Illustrator, and once again, those vector lines make it really clean. Now that doesn't mean you can't design your icon in Photoshop. That's perfectly valid. You just want to create the best looking icon that you can. Now, the last link here is my app icon template in Illustrator, made from above file, but it's 60 by 60. So what I did was I took this grid that they made and I dropped it in Illustrator, and then I made my artboard 60 by 60 60 pixels by 60, and I made that as a template that you can use. So let me go there. Let me show you what it looks like. Let me turn off the design here. So this is the template, and if I click on the artboard button over here, double click on it, you'll see that it's 60 points by 60 points, the page width there, right? And of course, I just grabbed that ping file that I downloaded, which is this template, and I dropped it on here, and I made that a layer called template, and I locked it. And then this other layer here I called design, and in this case, I went ahead and put an icon that I'm designing for the Wildcord app. So you can notice a few things about this icon. First of all, let me jump over here to XD so we can look at the program again. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice is we have this kind of funky font here. It's actually called, what's it called? I forget what it's called. It's a pirate font, sort of. Oh, it's called Pieces of 8. That's what it's called. And so it has a very distinctive look. So what I thought was, why not just take this distinctive W here and make that the icon, the image that's on the icon app, right? And then I thought, well, and I have this very distinctive sunset background here. So why don't I color pick a light and a dark from there to make my background color sort of a gradient, right? So sure enough, that's what I did. I just used the Pieces of 8 font, and I typed out the W. I actually created outlines from it just so I could, scale it easily. And then you can see in here, we have all these guidelines to work from. I basically just used this inner box here and made it go from one edge to the other. Of course, it's not going to go all the way to the top or the bottom. I tried stretching it up to here and here. I'll do that right now so you can see it. And it looks, oops, I hate that when it does the little rotation thing. It looks kind of weird to me, and also it's not, there's the rotation thing again, which I hate. Let's see, I could, potentially use this box all the way by doing this kind of thing and, get the most bang for my buck for this app, but that looks weird to me. It looks stretched, and also it's not the way that it looks when used on the actual logo. So I thought I'd use this. So once again, I'm just abiding by these center, the center square, going across the entire width of that, and then when you click on this, the center point of from the top to the bottom is also lined up with the very center line going across here. So I've got this thing, as centered as it's going to get. Now for this background gradient, I just made a box in Illustrator and filled it with a gradient. And what I did was I dropped this sunset graphic right here, this one, into my file, and then I just used the eyedropper tool to sample a light gold and then a darker orange, and then did a linear gradient to form the background there. So and when you turn this off, that's what your icon's actually going to look like. Of course, Apple will automatically put the rounded corners in there, so you don't have to worry about that. Now I also have one article here. I didn't link to this because it's a little old, but it had some good information. This one here. A couple of things that they say here that I think are important. So keep the background solid. Transparency doesn't work. No photos or screenshots. Too much detail doesn't work. And then this is important. Don't round corners. Just make it the square, and that'll work. Now also, you have to keep in mind that if you're doing a cross-platform app, which many apps, if not most, are, you also have to abide by the app icon rules for the Google Play Store. And so they have a different set of rules right here. So after you make your Apple app, and spit out the 1x, 2x, and 3x versions of that, you also have to make your Google apps, right? And then, spit out the different versions they will want of that too. And things like XD can help you with that. Now, one other thing while we're talking about app sizes and everything, unfortunately, you have to make more than just those 3 apps for the iPhone because they have the little icon apps in different places. Like, for example, there's something called Spotlight, Spotlight settings and notification icons. And these are smaller little icons that can show up over on like the left-hand side of your phone, and those are a different set of sizes. This is like 40 points by 40 points. So, after you make your icons for the phone slash iPad, the 1x, 2x, and 3x, you're going to have to go back in and recreate them for, the spotlight section on the iPhone, iPad Pro, and so on and so forth. So you can see that, it's not going to kill you. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but it is a little bit of pain. You have to take your app and then you have to export it at a variety of sizes just to fit all the needs for the Apple devices. And once again, that's just Apple. You also have to go over to the Android section and do everything for Android too. And I think in one of these pages here, and we're in the Human Interfaces Guidelines on Apple's website. If you click through these little links down here, it takes you to eventually to the Google Play Store, and tells you what the information is for that. So, it'd be great if you could just make one app one size, and there was some software that would do all the work. And maybe there is. Some of the software that I showed you guys earlier in the semester, some of that drag and drop applications that you pay for to make apps. Maybe you upload your app at one size, like at the highest possible resolution there, and maybe it spits out all the sizes for Apple and for Android, and that alone would be worth the money. So okay. So anyway, let's go to the final part of this, which is, after you make your app, let's say you use this template that you downloaded, and you use this, you download this file, use this template to design your app so that it, fits, sort of is centered in here, right? You put in either solid background color, some kind of gradient, whatever. You turn off the template, and now you're going to export this file, right? Now you want to export it as a PNG, so you could go File, Export, Export As. You want to, of course, before I do this, you want to make sure that it's an RGB format, right? Not CMYK. You're going to export it. Oops, I got the wrong thing. Export for screens. Well, I guess this could work too. Oh, this is interesting. I didn't notice this before, but it looks like it will actually export in multiple scales here, which is nice. Let's see if we click to add scale. Yeah, cool. There's the 2x, and there's the 3x. So yeah, before I had just done the straight export as a PNG, right? And now doing the export for screens, we get all these different options. So this is great. This will export in all these different formats, and then you can just choose where you want to save it. Click Export Artboard, and you're golden, right? You're going to get all your different format sizes there, right? And this is interesting because we click on iOS, and it's showing us this stuff, and we can click on Android. And this is the other thing I wanted to show you. See, Android has their own naming system and their own resolutions here. Like, look at this. There's something called 1x. There's 1.5x. What is that? 2 and 3. And look at this. It's so scary. 4x, right? And then why not just throw in everything that was ever conceived of for all time and space? 0.75x, right? So now the good news about all this is, I was just talking, maybe there's a program out there that can do all this for you. Well, here is one. Illustrator will do it for you, so it's nice. So you can get your iOS stuff. You can export it here. You can click over here and do your Android stuff. And then here are some advanced settings that you can use. You don't want to have it interlaced on. You want your background color to be a solid color, not transparent. And then you want to use ping 8 whenever possible, as opposed to ping 24. Okay, so this is great. So like I said, we'll go back to iOS, and you can export all that stuff, and you'll be good to go, right? Let me cancel out of this. Now, the other thing you could do, I would recommend using the Illustrator export because it's just great. But what I did previous to that was I simply exported this as a PNG file, and then I just used the same method that we've been using. I exported it as a PNG file, and then I came in here and I just did file import, and I just placed that file right here in XD. because I was just going to use XD's export function where it makes the 1x, 2x, and 3x, right? Now, when I brought this in, I had saved my original file. When I exported this, let me show you how I did it originally. I did export, and I did export as. So then I used ping, and I said use artboard, right? And then here I made it high resolution because I wanted it to come over high resolution and then be smushed down afterwards. I didn't want it to come over all blurry at first. So when I did that, when it was in here, it was actually super huge. Like it was something like 250 by 250 when I brought it in, because it was 300. It was 300 pixels per inch, and its size was 60 by 60, so that made it this, right? So all I had to do when I brought it in was just come over here and change it, because 60 is the 1x size, right? And so now it still looks good, and it's 60 by 60, and then all I had to do was rename it, and I just named it, icon dash Apple, right? And then all I did was I exported it from here. So file, export selected, excuse me, and then use the iOS, which gave me all three of those, right? So I did this kind of long workaround thing that I've been doing to make the app, but it worked out perfectly fine. But as I said, just during this tutorial, I stumbled over the option here in Illustrator. Let's see, export for screens, which is amazing that you have all these options to do all this kind of stuff. So definitely use this, experiment with it, and see how it works out for you. Now, as I said, I exported all this. I put it in my inside a folder for my app, and that's here under downloads. And by the way, I have in Photoshop the versions, all three versions of the icon, which we can look at. And here they are. There's the 1x, the 2x, and the 3x. And you can see they all look pretty good, right? And of course, they're going to get those rounded corners. But then, of course, I save this in the My App folder. And here they are, icon Apple 2x, and icon Apple 3x, right? And you can see they're not very large files, and we can tell from here that they, or from Photoshop, that they look pretty good. I don't know what happened to them. They just kind of disappeared. But we can tell that they look pretty good. And so we're good to go, as at least with the first set of Apple icons. Then we got to do the ones for the Spotlight. Then we got to do the ones for Android. So, it is a process. But, hopefully this little tutorial will help you, at least as far as like deciding, what kind of icon you want to make. You have to pick something that's going to be indicative of your app, and then maybe have a nice color background. And then you have to make it the correct size, and then you have to use that export function to get all the different versions of it that you need. And then you save it inside your file, and then it gets linked to from some code, which will display it for the app. And then when you export the, you take all of the files that you use for the app, and you zip them together, and you upload it to what's called the PhoneGap build server. Because we're using this PhoneGap system to make our apps. And what it does is it just processes it all, it turns it all into code. If you've got the Android icons and the Android code as well as the iOS code, and you select that you want to make both apps, it'll spit out both apps. If you have just the iPhone stuff, it'll just spit out the iPhone app. And then, of course, you can download that and you can test it on your personal phone or any phone that you have given permission to test that app. And of course, it can't be downloaded to anybody's phone until it appears in the App Store for Apple. And of course, that means it's a week or two process of being reviewed, to make sure it meets all the requirements. And of course, the Google Play Store is much quicker, much easier to get into. I've uploaded apps to the Google Play Store and had them available in a couple hours. So much less stringent policing of the guidelines there. But of course, Apple is a much bigger marketplace, and you make people who sell apps on the Apple App Store make more money. Okay, anyway, that's just sort of the quick summary of designing apps or app icons, I should say, for your app. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to you again on Thursday. Thanks.